All right. Murders of the homeless are in the news. And that happens from time to time. But what y'all don't understand is how frequently we're killed, how frequently nobody cares. There's an article about this one's from the Washington Post. I suppose I should probably see if I can post it up here. Copy, and we'll go to the chat thing and we'll click paste. Now, there's a guy named Chris Stegeman. One of his sayings is nothing makes a statement like a severed head. And yes, people have been cutting the heads off of homeless people in the United States. Chloe Chang type, nice to see you out. Where are you going? I have no idea. Right now, I'm similar stuff to me. She's one of the people that rescued folks in Boulder, Colorado. She's a victim of long term abuse, just like me. She's a victim of people slandering her name and getting away with doing whatever they want just by calling her mentally ill, and then nobody will listen. I made a missing persons post about her. Her name's Rebecca. I came up here to help her out, and then when I got here, she was magically gone. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't just to help her out. The day that I got released from Scottsbluff jail last year, I told the officer I was planning on coming to Oregon. That was before I even knew that Rebecca was up here. I might have known. No, I don't think I did because I don't think she was up here yet at that point. Anyway, long story short, I planned on coming here and checking out the forests and finding a place to dig in. I have no idea where I'm going from here. That depends on how much help Rebecca needs. She's having problems with finding direction at the moment. There's a lot of stuff that her and I need to discuss in order for her to get the help that she's expecting out of me because she's just, it's tough. It's not easy. After what she's been through, it's a lot easier to understand her in person, which is part of the reason that I try to speak to people in person. I also want to bring up the fact that at the Starbucks I'm at right now, there was a couple of women who came here to Starbucks to break up. So there wouldn't be any violence or anything like that. That's part of the reason for doing so in public. When the situation with me and Natalie was going on, I tried to meet her somewhere public. Well, she wanted to meet me somewhere public, I should say. She wanted to meet me at the Starbucks on Pearl Street. I wanted to meet at the police station. Of course, the evidence proves that, but do any of these Natalie Bollinger groups show that? No, they intentionally ignore everything that shows that I was telling the truth. And it's somehow magically okay. Now, I noticed that lawmakers in Congress, they have an emotional response. It's on the news that they had an emotional response to Ukraine. Where's their emotional response to the homeless? There isn't one. How do they get the money for those weapons that they're sending to Ukraine? It's not from taxing the rich. Meanwhile, just the time that I spent locked up last year cost Will County over $100,000. Not to mention the cost to my evidence, the prevention of my rights to face my accusers or to show evidence. Somebody's got to do something. I realize I'm not the right gender. That's much of the issue with being a white male. You've been victimized too, but you can't say that to a black man because you get told about white privilege. So because I'm white, does that make it okay to commit these crimes against me? Because that's what you're telling me at that point. You don't care that I endured the same abuse that you did because I'm not black, so I don't matter. That's not okay. That's for certainly not okay. When we've taught an entire generation that no matter what happens to them, it must be because they're black. It must be because of the color of their skin. It must be white people's fault. Which white people? And are you sure it's happening just because of your skin? Because it's happening to a lot of other people who are not your skin color. How can it be a conspiracy against black people when it's happening to white people too? I'm not pretending that there is no racism. I grew up in the system. I know for a fact that there is racism. I have lived racism. What I'm saying is not everything is racially motivated. Most of it is poverty motivated. It's just assumed that a minority is broke, just like it's assumed that a homeless person is broke. And then, of course, we got the Hollywood bias. People watch Hollyweird and can't detach themselves from Hollyweird. They can't tell the difference between Hollyweird and fucking reality. Now, that article there from the Washington Post. The Washington Post, folks. The things I've been telling you about that you pretend I'm crazy for saying, even the Washington Post is posting about that shit. There was a serial killer in Colorado who was killing homeless people, and they never found him. They never found him. He could still be killing homeless people now. We're talking about dozens of homeless people killed in less than a 10-year period. Dozens murdered in the Denver metro area. Dozens. Unsolved murders, all of them unsolved. Why is that? It's because they don't matter. Homeless people only matter to other homeless people, and that only extends as far as somebody's desperation. People in desperate situations do desperate things. When people are backed into corners, they do desperate things. Now, for me, I was trying to turn in threats, harassment, and assaults. And the police kept on doing everything in their power to try to pretend that it was my fault because internet. Like, all of my predators are on the internet and I don't have to deal with any predator in life. And if I just stay off the internet, then I'll never have to deal with predators. No, Robert Warnick was a predator in real life. Sheriff Scott DaCosta, a predator in real life. Waylon Lolatai, a predator in real life. Leslie Snell, a predator in real life. Now I want to go over behavior changes. We're going to talk about abuse and autism. A lot of this stuff that I've been telling you guys that you want to treat me like I'm crazy for, there's all sorts of fucking evidence that backs it up. But are you willing to look? All All right, here. Effects of domestic violence. Domestic violence affects one's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors and can significantly impact one's mental stability. Increased anxiety, post traumatic stress disorder, and depression symptoms are commonly observed among survivors of domestic violence. Just so you know, people, I've been diagnosed with all of those. Yes, I'm depressed. Yes, I have PTSD. Yes, I have increased anxiety. Now, there's, of course, stuff in here about drug abuse. And when it comes to Natalie Bollinger, those are important, but we're going to get to that in a later video. Right now, we're working on my symptoms. The internet and the person that I was before all this happened are not the same person. Obviously, I'm not some multiple personality type folk who has one Sean Schwartz and then I have a David Schwartz who's a completely different, separate personality from me that I don't know exists. No, I'm aware of my fucking stance. I'm aware of my circumstance. I'm aware of my station in life. How does abuse affect a person? It says maltreatment can cause victims to feel isolation, fear, and distrust, which can translate into lifelong psychological consequences that can manifest as educational difficulties, low self-esteem, depression, and trouble forming and maintaining relationships. By the way, I retained and maintained quite a few relationships for over 20 years. What killed it was what happened to Natalie and people wanting to look away. Now, we've read that thing a few times already about what you're not supposed to say to a victim. And you look at the people who claim that they were going to help me, and what are they saying to me? All the things you're not supposed to say to a victim, those things are not help. When I told those people that those things are not help, they threw tantrums at me like 5-year-olds, or blocked me, or treated me like I was a monster, treated me like I had shat in their Cheerios. Meanwhile, I show them that stuff out of a psych book even. Oh yeah, we don't get that far because they're too busy throwing a tantrum. They never get far enough to look it up. That's the thing about my supposed friends. For months on end, claiming they were going to do things that they didn't do. For months on end, I was depending on them, wasting my resources on their empty promises. Yeah, hindsight is 2020, motherfuckers. Those of you who want to say you should have done this and you should have done that, you know, a lot of those things you say I should have done, I tried and they didn't fucking work. In all of those situations, it's all over literally the same thing. The mentally ill tag. This guy who went around murdering homeless people, they're playing the mentally ill tag on him too. Because, see, people hear shit like that, and they automatically associate every time they say that this person was mentally ill or that person was mentally ill. They're making that person and every person who is called mentally ill made out to be like that person. Look at Ted Kaczynski. Look at this guy who's going around and killing homeless people. How many of the homeless people that he murdered were called mentally ill? How many non-violent people with mental illnesses are killed every day, are victimized every day because it's easy for you to do it and get away with it? You call them mentally ill. Automatically, people assume the worst in that person and they never get an honest chance. And that's reality, folks. That's not Hollywood. That's reality for you. Let's see. Can abuse change your personality? What are the 5 effects of abuse? Increased fear, guilt, and self-blame. Distrust of adults or difficulty forming relationships with others. Disrupted attachments with those who are meant to keep them safe. Mental health disorders such as anxiety, attachment, post-traumatic stress, and depression disorders. Y'all still here? Y'all on the same page? Hell, I can't even tell if anybody's looking at it because I'm on a different page, different web page anyway. Looks like nobody's watching. So goes life. I'm going to continue reading. Now, there is a lot here. Let's see. What are 6 long term effects of abuse? Health issues caused by stress, such as high blood pressure and associated cardiac problems. Health issues from physical abuse, such as damaged joints or arthritis, chronic back pain or headaches. Oh my God, are they not talking about me to a T? Increased risk of developing diabetes, asthma, depression, and immune dysfunction due to long term stress. Yeah. How does abuse affect future relationships? It says, how does abuse affect cognitive development? The studies have shown that maltreatment during childhood has deleterious effects on cognitive function. Overall, adults or children/teens exposed to abuse during childhood performed poorly on tasks meant to assess verbal episodic memory, working memory, attention, and executive functions. Now, executive functions, we're getting into autism now, aren't we? See, that's one of the things that, well, for example, Marcia Estrada was talking about how my PTSD could manifest itself, come across as bipolar disorder. In many cases, there's a possibility that, well, the way that I am might not be autism. It might be long term effects from long term abuse, but they manifest the same. The executive function issues, the trust issues. But then again, when you're different, how do Americans treat someone who's different? What's the image that we sell versus the reality of the situation? Now let's talk about Boulder instead, because y'all know that elsewhere things are completely different. Boulder is 20 square miles surrounded by reality. In Boulder, Colorado, that's probably the only place where I've ever been where they specifically cater to minorities. The police cater specifically to minorities because you never know when that'll get you or your department in trouble, because that person that you just arrested or that person that you decided to be a racist asshole to, he might be a CU alumni. He might be the child of a CU alumni. He might play sports for a CU athletic program. And that'll end up all over the news, especially if it's a black college student who plays football. You do that shit to a football player who's black in Boulder, Colorado, it will be on national news, possibly even international news. There's a reason, especially after what happened in the 90s. There is a reason that Boulder, Colorado specifically caters to black people. Now, with the Zaid Atkinson situation, a lot of people are claiming that he was targeted because he was black. Oh, hell no. He absolutely 100% was not targeted for the color of his skin. He was targeted because they assumed he was homeless, and by the time they realized that he wasn't, it was too late to back out. People say, well, that's not true. How many fucking homeless people go to college? Quite a few, actually. How many homeless people have a student ID? Quite a few, actually. People don't want to pay attention to the fact that before it got way out of proportion and Officer Waylon Lolatai was there with a fucking shotgun, that the address that was on his student ID did not meet or match the address that he was staying at. The address that he was at the point that that officer stopped him was not the address that was on his ID. Yes, they absolutely treated Zaid Atkinson at the very beginning like he was a homeless person. And after they realized that he was not a homeless person, they treated him a lot nicer than they would have treated a homeless person in that situation. I gotta pee like a racehorse. Now, this guy who's running around killing homeless people, he's not the only one. See, a lot of people who are Native Americans, they want us all to focus on missing and murdered Native Americans and the fact that there's probably serial killers there, especially in the Hardin area. Well, homeless people are going through that too, and we're speaking out for missing and murdered Indigenous people. Are the missing and murdered Indigenous people speaking up about those in our community that's happening to, including Native Americans? Are Native Americans speaking up and fighting for the rights of the homeless or the disabled? I can make examples like that for women and for black folk and for immigrants as well. I'm fighting for your rights. But you won't fight for mine because of my skin color, you racist piece of shit. You won't fight for mine because of my gender, you sexist piece of shit. I call people out on their bullshit. They don't like it? Well, maybe they shouldn't have bullshit. There's this guy on here who's a sexist POS. I think it's called like Tribe of Men or something like that. And this guy who's on there, he is so sexist against women. Now, listening to him, it really does seem to me like he isn't actually like that. Like he's actually just throwing it out there as satire. Like, you know, the only reason that I'm saying this is because we're hearing what this woman said, who is extremely sexist. So for him, it's a matter of being equally sexist back. Now, that could be. But let's imagine now that everybody's excuse for being that way is to be satirical and show the example. I've already shown the example and been satirical. But not most of the time. Most of the time, I'm trying to show the facts and show the truth. Now, if everybody's just doing it as satire, then nobody actually means it. And as a result, nobody is actually sexist or nobody is actually racist. And as a result, we should all just get along, right? Do you allow somebody to explain that you're being satirical, that you're trying to show the example that it's different? If a man says it, he's a horrible person. If a woman says it, then it must be right. If a man does it, he must be a pussy. If a woman does it, we're expected to help her. Let's give the example of getting pulled over. You've been going a little bit over the speed limit and you just got pulled over by an officer. He doesn't know if you're a man or a woman, but nearly every woman I know has a story about how she got out of a ticket by crying. Does that work for a man? Shit. Most men know better enough not to even fucking try. It's kind of like when a man is abused by his girlfriend. Did you know that males are usually the victims of physical abuse? Did you know that? In most cases, men are the victims, not women. Men are the victims of physical abuse. The situation in Bollinger, I was the victim repeatedly of physical abuse before Natalie was killed. I was repeatedly assaulted because she lied. How many people did I assault? None. Zero. But I'm the one treated to this day like some sort of a fucking monster. I'm the one who has to pay the consequences for the rest of my life. I'm the one who literally has to break the law to try to force the cops to do their jobs and take a look. The media doesn't care. Do you guys care? I mean, I've had to deal with this corruption, not just generalized corruption, like, oh, well, they're this to these people and then they're doing it to those people. This group is doing it to this group. No, I'm telling you the fucking specifics, the officers' names, my victims' names, My victims' names aren't men. My victims' names aren't women. My victims, my victims, my victims. And that's what I keep getting pushed on this. Like I'm the predator. Like the people who did these horrible things to me. These people who preyed on me. Like they are the victims. Because in some cases, I did the tiny things that were done to me back. I gave people a tiny taste of what they were putting me through. And somehow, magically, it is okay for them, but it is wrong for me. That's hypocrisy. People say, oh, you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. You complained about these people doing this, 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 and this, and then you did this. That doesn't make me a hypocrite. That is something that I had to do in order to show the hypocrisy. The fact that I couldn't get any help when people were doing these things to me. But if I do it, magically, I'm some sort of a fucking villain. People actually assault me. People actually threaten to kill me repeatedly, over and over and over again. And my side was never allowed to be shown in court because I didn't have anybody actually there in my corner. If they were actually there in my corner, they would have wanted to take a look. They would have me enough to not want me to be victimized. But most of these people couldn't stop being selfish. After offering to help, they couldn't stop being selfish long enough to even hear what I was going through. They couldn't stop long enough to actually look at the evidence. Not until Mandy Singer. And take a look at that situation. The cops knew that I was trying to turn them in, and every time they pull this bullshit. They charge me with bogus bullshit. The safety issues with the Dual County Sheriff's Department are ignored. The wrongdoing of the people who work at the Dual County Sheriff's Department and in that building are ignored. People say you just need to move along. You just need to move somewhere else. Where to? Where am I going to be able to fucking afford to live with all of the money this has cost me? And not just the money that it has cost me, but also my ability to even work. My ability to even have an address, to have the resources that I'm entitled to by law even sent to. I needed a safe environment. And when people are being fucking abusive to each other, it's not a safe environment. When I was at Brett Roloff's, that was not a safe environment. Him being all fucked up on meth made it so that obviously he wasn't going to be able to help me. He was too fucked up on meth. Just like at Shannon Alvarado's. Good intentions, sure. But her alcoholism and the way that she acted because she was on alcohol. What reaction do you expect me to have to that? Many women out there, and a lot of y'all women can verify this. When you're in a subservient position, let's say you get a boyfriend and you move in with your boyfriend, subservient position, are you not? You have to mind your P's and Q's a little more than if it was your place, or in many cases, a lot more than if it was your place. You have to worry that if you stick up for yourself or you have to be afraid that if you don't take the abuse or if you say anything about the abuse, you're going to end up out on the streets. It's not any different for men, especially a man in my position. I'm not moving in with a girlfriend. I'm moving in with people who offered to help me the way that I needed. And when I get there, only to find out that they're strung out on meth or fucked up on alcohol. Yeah, that's hurtful. How do I get those resources back that I wasted to go there? And then because I don't really have anyone else to go to, I still have to trust those people. Or because those people have evidence and testimony that is important, I still have to try to, well, be nice to those people instead of telling the truth. You know what? Telling the truth is not being mean to you. And that's what most of these people don't get. They should have told the truth to begin with. I was abused because they didn't come forward and tell the truth. Just like the situation with Natalie. Was I pissed off at Natalie because she wouldn't touch my willy? Oh, hell no. I was pissed off because I was being abused, and she should have come forward and told the truth because I was being abused. A lot of people knew that the narrative being sold was not the truth, but they didn't come forward. Why didn't they? A lot of them didn't pay any fucking attention. A lot of people didn't know that anything was going on until after Natalie's killer was found. And then they just assumed that because Natalie's killer was found, everything was fine and dandy and I could get back on with my life. No, I couldn't. The police in Colorado made sure that they pressed false charges on me and kept false charges on me until just last year, so that I couldn't turn in my predators in the Colorado government. I've been trying to get people to look at evidence. There's a woman who was on one of Rob Gavigan's posts. He's one of the dudes who sold a bunch of fucking slander for entertainment. And this woman, I can't remember what her tag was on YouTube. I think it was like Mama Bear or Queen Mama Bear or something like that. But her Facebook profile is Barbara Murray's Frankfurt pet sitter or something like that. Anyway, she was going to help me, but instead, she's been on my friends list for like 6 months if she was going to help me, but in 6 months she hasn't. She hasn't made any effort towards it. She doesn't speak out. She doesn't look at evidence. What's the point? These people heard something on Rob Gavigan's channel and then they want to be friends with me and ignore me. Why send somebody a friend's request and then ignore them? Why send them a friend's request and then pretend they don't exist? Why tell them pretty words? All these people that I went to for help, that list of things that you're not supposed to say to somebody. Yeah, all of these people wanted to say these things to me over and over and over again, and I'm explaining to them. Pretty words, folks. They're just pretty words. Yes, I get that in some circumstances that may be a perfect meme for the situation, but it's not a fucking fix-all for every goddamn thing. Don't be so stupid. All right. Well, let's open this up and see if we can read it. Na 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 na. The Avatar. Actually, it's not pictures of the Avatar. It's pictures of the cabbage wagon. I think that's the moral of the Avatar Last Airbender. I think the moral of the story is don't be a cabbage vendor. All right, enough of the funnies there. We're going to get to this part here that's pretty serious. I saved it as survives. Now we're going to read this. All right, things not to say to a survivor. Just get over it. The past is the past. You just need to move on. You need to forgive and forget about it. What happened to you was not that bad. It could be worse. You need to let it go. You're strong. You'll be fine. Life goes on. These are all dismissive. Every single one of those is dismissive of a survivor's struggles. Every single one of those is dismissive. Every single one of those shows the person who's coming to you for help that you're just going to blow them off with shit like this. People don't want to pay attention to the fact that, like, again, I got to live in a fucking vehicle because I don't have any actual help in person. People say, oh, well, I thought you had an advocate. I thought you had an advocate. I don't have an advocate as far as what I'm supposed to have legally for court. But the courts get to pretend that I had one of those. She's not an advocate. An advocate actually advocates for someone. Now let's read the definition of advocate. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I don't have my keyboard attached, so I can't look that up. You guys can probably look it up pretty easily, though, couldn't you? So you say those things that you're not supposed to say to a survivor. You don't care that it's dismissive. When they tell you that it's dismissive, you throw a tantrum and treat them like they're not trying to get help. Or you say, I tried to help you and you wouldn't take it. Oh, telling me that a bird in the bush is worth two in the hand, or a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, or you just need to love yourself, that's not help. You didn't give me help by saying those things. You did not help me. You wasted time and energy by spouting bullshit. Kind of like when you hear the words, I'm sorry, you can be pretty assured that that person's not going to help you or even try. They're just going to say they're sorry. Now, with Rebecca here, I mean, yeah, it's fairly certain that she doesn't have the mental capacity right now to actually help me. She can't hardly take care of herself. After what she's been through, I can understand it, and she needs help. I also see the way that she's going about it. Now that she has people here in person, she seems to think that we're here so that we can, I don't know, near as I can gather, she wants to do something incredibly stupid, and I'm supposed to be her emergency ride out of here. So what? She's going to break the law, and then I'm supposed to drive her to another state so she can get away with it? No, how about when you've got people there? I understand breaking the law. When it's just you and you can't get help, I can understand when you have to break the law to try to get help. When you've got people there in person who are willing to help you how you need, not tell you, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, but say, hey, what do you need? Let's do it. Well, you got to try to give them some direction. Now, she was all gung-ho about doing this the right way and the legal way, and now that I'm here, it doesn't seem like she's interested in that. Now, for me, that's all I was interested in was the legal way. How do I force these motherfuckers to do their goddamn jobs with the mentally ill tag hanging over my head? With people pretending like I'm some sort of a fucking monster and using that as an excuse to harm me financially, to harm me physically, to harm me emotionally and psychologically. A lot of people say stuff to me like, well, you're verbally abusive. You goddamn right I am. Fuck yes, I am. If you tell me to go fuck myself, I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself right back. That's called equality, asshole. If you want to be an asshole to me, equality dictates that I should be an asshole to you. Now, according to most of these people that I went to for help who said that they were going to help me, according to most of them, what I should be doing is killing my predators. Most of them think that I should be killing the people who did this to me. I'm against killing. You have any idea how much bullshit I had to go through in order to even be willing to threaten the people who threatened me back? To threaten the people who threatened my life, for me to threaten them back, took over a year in some of these cases. There were only two situations where I actually threatened people with violence. One of them was Ted Bollinger, and the other occasion was when I threatened the people who threatened to kill me and my loved ones. I threatened them back. Now, they held court without me over that because my friends who said that they would be there were not. They were not there. Now, all the evidence that I need in order to win in a court date, there's enough on my YouTube alone for me to win these court dates. But there's a 0% chance, because I'm called mentally ill, of any of that happening without someone actually being there in my corner. Not somebody bullshitting me and getting drunk. Not somebody bullshitting me and then playing phone games on their fucking smartphone all day. Not people who are going to blow me off for 7 months and make every excuse. Well, if those reasons that you had for not keeping your word are true, you should have no problem saying those in court or in public. But instead, I had to record it, record you admitting those things, and post it in public, and then you throw a tantrum like I'm a horrible person for showing the truth when you didn't keep your word, when you didn't come forward. I shouldn't have had to do that. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, Sean, you make your own decisions." But then, when it comes to Natalie or any of my other predators, and yes, Natalie was my predator, what she did was predatory. Y'all want to say, "Well, you made her do this or you made her do that." But when it comes to me, you say, "You made your own decisions. You made your bed. You did this. You did that." So I'm responsible for my behaviors and everyone else's? Is that what you're telling me? Because I have a penis, I am responsible for everything with a vagina? Is that what you're telling me? I am responsible for the actions of women, despite the fact that I am not a woman? Is that what you are telling me? Obviously, your brain is defunct. Your ability to comprehend the world around you is non-existent. Anyway, I'm going to end this because I got to piss like a racehorse. Murders of the homeless are on the rise. Homelessness is on the rise. Most of you surpassed your 1 month away from being homeless paycheck 3 months ago. If it weren't for COVID, you would be homeless. Congratulations, America. You're fucking stupid.